asked to vote on a proposition to authorize fully funded capital project at Troy High School to replace a portion of the roof. The proposal will have no additional impact on taxpayers. Please visit the Troy website at www.troycsd.org for details and polling information. If anybody would like an absentee ballot, they may be picked up tonight here from our board clerk, Mary Beth Bruno. And we ask you all to please go out and vote. On Wednesday, December 5th, Troy Middle School will host an important event on cyberbullying, open to all Troy City School District families. Growing Up in the Digital Age will take place 5 to 6:15 in the Troy Middle School and will include a Q&A session and panel discussion with educators, mental health professionals, and law enforcement. Public input on agenda and non-agenda items. The Board of Education recognizes that it serves the residents of the enlarged city school district of Troy, New York. So we encourage public attendance at our meetings, and we also welcome your comments. Please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes so that everyone who wants to speak has an equal chance to do so. If you're unable to finish your remarks during the 5-minute time frame, you can supplement them by submitting a written statement to the board clerk. The board regrets that because of time constraints, it cannot respond during the public comment period to questions raised. We know that all speakers will display the courtesy and respect in their remarks that is emblematic of our Troy community, and we appreciate your input. Is there anyone wishing to speak at this time? We'll go right into Dr. Ford's School 16 presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo, members of the Board of Education, Mr. Carmelo, and Captain for allowing me to present tonight. I'm very excited to share with you regarding School 16 programs and initiatives. Before I begin, we do have Mr. Bowman here tonight with our School 16 chorus. So we're going to have him sing a couple of songs for us.
Good evening, Troy School District administrators, members of the Board of Education, and members of the Troy community. Mr. Ford, thank you for inviting the chorus to perform tonight. We are all very proud to represent School 16.
The chorus will perform 2 songs this evening. Our first song is a feel-good piece, Bright Happy Day, written and arranged by Mike Wilson.
Woke up this morning, I'm feeling alright.
is a preview of our winter concert, which will take place on Monday, December 10th at 7 p.m. in the School 16 Gymnasium. Please enjoy Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow, arranged by Roger Emerson.
Thank you, Mr. Romeo. Students, what an amazing job. Amazing job. Great job. Thank you. I am so proud of our school community here at School 16. Students, staff, school community, the great support we receive each and every day to support our students' increased achievement is very much appreciated. The first slide I want to share with you is our 6-year trend in student performance on your state DLA math and science exams. As you can see, back in 2012-13, first year of change in testing format. Our baseline scores for DLA, math, and science proficiency, 16%, 20%, 21%, 85%. And as you follow along each consecutive year, you can see the slow and steady progress that is shown on the slide here. More than double our ELA proficiency performance, more than double our math performance proficiency. With that, a lot of hard work, a lot of commitment on behalf of our parents, our students, our staff. 75% of the grade level teachers are new since 2012, when I first came in. 75%. So we acquired some amazing talent during our interview process. Our staff that have been here have been reinforcing the consistent practice here at School 16. Our parents, year in, year out, committed to our events and committed to our support for our academics here. So very, very impressive. So this year, this past year, 2017-18, you can see our scores here. 37.8% proficient of our students grades 3 through 5 proficient in ELA, 48.7% proficient in math, and 85.5% proficient in fourth grade science. Absolutely amazing job. Thank you very much, staff. Round of applause for our staff. They did a great job. So, our math proficiency this past year was 4.2% higher than the New York State average for grade 4 for math. Excellent job. For ELA, we continue to show a steady increase in proficiency. No regressions in student proficiency average for the past 5 years. Consistent, steady increases. Once again, we're a school in good standing. 5 years removed from our lab designation. And then, just looking at our comparable schools, of the 28 elementary schools in Otis and Troy, we're the second highest performing school. Overall proficiency, that's really amazing. And for me, when I look at that, when I thought about that, and I always look at comparable schools just to see where we're at, much like the state does, but also having the experience of working in all 3 districts. And I saved the best for last, Detroit. Because with all that experience, you learn things. And you're able to bring that with your collective experiences, you share with the staff you have, and you build off of that, and you come up with strategies and ideas. And for me, it means a lot to look at that and see that we really have accomplished a lot collectively as a staff and school community, so I'm very proud of that. So how do we keep moving forward? So our goals we set out for proficiency for students have been 50% ELA in math. We're staying with that. That continues to be our goal. We met with our school leadership team this summer, along with our RTI team, along with our PBIS team. And each team came up with an action plan and our goals, and then how the steps to support accomplishing those goals. So for our school leadership team action plan, to increase student proficiency performance in the 2019 NORT exams, 50% proficient in ELA, 50% of our students proficient in math. And then in our action plan, put in our action steps that we're going to monitor throughout the course to be able to make sure we're moving towards that goal. So with that, full implementation of our units of study for K through 5 reading and writing, implementation of our library of resources and materials for K through 5, I'm going to share that with you shortly. Increased focus on supporting the needs of level 1 and level 2 students. The level 1 and 2 students have been the slowest group to move in terms of moving towards proficiency in our school and in the district, and basically across the state. So we have an increased focus on how we're going to support students at those levels, not just to get their targeted services by support staff, but also within that classroom. So with that, we looked at pushing classroom reading support services for intensive groups. So all reading teachers are pushing into the classrooms, working right along with classroom teachers to increase that flexibility of them being able to switch groups and work together on similar instruction. The coordination of the delivery of instruction for our classroom teachers, special ed teachers, and speech teachers, along with our reading teachers. So what does the instruction look like? Is it connected to what the teacher is doing in the classroom? We have a full-time instructional coach, Ms. Allen, and everyone's very excited about having Ms. Allen here full-time. And I want to thank the board and Mr. Carmelo for supporting that initiative. Ms. Allen spends a lot of her time reviewing the data and meeting with grade level teachers, meeting with myself, making sure that all groups of students are supported, making sure that instruction is consistent within the classroom across grade level and between grade levels. So we very much appreciate her support. Consistent review of grade level student data sheets. So we have each classroom, each grade level teacher will have a data sheet that consists of multiple assessments that can be viewed for each student. We're sharing that data on a common data drive. So everyone can do that. Special ed teacher, speech teacher, reading teacher. And we have our conversations based on the progress of students throughout the course of the year. No one data point is more important than the other, but in collection, in terms of the whole set of data points, it tells a story for each one of the students, and tells a story of what we're doing in terms of instruction and moving forward and supporting those students. So a lot of conversations, once a month. We do have our grade level DFS meetings for ELA and math on separate days. In addition to that, use our extended grade level time to meet as a staff to talk about data and those data sheets and start to look at each individual student on if they're moving, if they're not, why they're not, what are we doing in terms of targeted practices. Our PBIS team action plan goal to reduce in-school and out-school suspensions by 20%, supporting that through our PBIS meetings, school-wide class celebrations, monthly for meeting behavior goals. We have our tiered levels of support. We do have students identified in the ability based on the level of support they need for on-task behaviors. So Tier 1 students are supported in the classroom by the teacher. Tier 2 and Tier 3 students that need more support, they're assigned to either our school counselor or school psychologist, and they are seen in counseling groups. In addition to that, we do have our staff, our counseling staff and school psychologists doing class presentations in the classroom. Along with that, we are monitoring the discipline data. We do have our school-wide resource savers, so we're looking at the social emotional support for students within the building. We are targeting that similar to academics. So once again, we create a profile for the students and we start to have the discussions of how we're going to support that student within the building to be successful. In addition to that, we have a focus on Tier 1 supports. So the Tier 1 supports are what teachers, the strategies and approaches and resources that teachers can use within the classroom that can maintain students and nothing additional is needed. So if a student is identified as Tier 1, that means the teacher can maintain on-task behavior and engagement within the classroom. No additional support needed. The RTI action plan, 20% increase in overall student achievement as assessed by students receiving Tier 3 instruction moving to Tier 2, and students receiving Tier 2 instruction moving to Tier 1. So our RTI team meets quite frequently. We do have a meeting schedule where we talk about the Tier 2 and Tier 3 students assigned to the school counselor and school psychologist, review the student data, and we revised our RTI referral process this summer. We streamlined it for our staff so that every grade level team has an RTI liaison that has a discussion with them regarding any concerns that might arise in the classroom. Before any students are recommended any further, data has to be tracked over a certain period of time and then reported out to the grade level team in the RTI liaison. If additional support is needed after that plan is initiated and the data is reviewed, then the recommendation will go to the RTI team. If not, we maintain supports as is from the grade level team. Once again, our guide for that is SABRS, which is the rating scale for social emotional support for students. Extended day programs. All the programs listed are currently in place and in operation and running. Our School 16 YMCA Advantage program is working in association with our Empire program, Monday through Friday. Our Emerald Achievement program takes place on Wednesdays. ELA and Math Enrichment program, we are rotating students in 5 groups, 5 sessions. We are approaching session 2, group 2 next week. So once again, we review some targeted strategies and provide students an opportunity to see what those test questions would look like. 21st Century program at Troy Middle Schools is on Tuesdays for our 5th graders. We also have a McKinney tutoring program in place. In addition, we have our partner programs at TSL, Boys and Girls Club, CYO, and Home 7. So part of our plan for continuous school turnaround is our focus on extending our professional learning community opportunities to make parents and students equally informed and engaged in school turnaround efforts and to assist teachers and myself in building on best practices. So part of that is making sure we have consistent communication with parents so they know what we know. So part of that, I took ownership of doing our school newsletter and including all the academic information and all the support information for students in that newsletter so parents can be informed. In addition to that, I do presentations at our PTA meetings, and we take advantage in terms of the opportunity of time for parent conferences to make sure information is also presented. In addition to that, professional development has been a focus for us, and we received great support through Mr. Carmelo and Dr. Watson's office for that. One great example, and the board. One example of that is our school reform conference in Atlanta. I greatly appreciate the opportunity for supporting us and going to that. Every conference we go to, whether it's model schools, changing student mindsets conference that myself and Mr. Meadows went to in San Francisco, it really does give you a lot of motivation and energy to come back and share some of those practices, because they're great practices. And to have the opportunity to sit down with other educators from other parts of the country and to brainstorm ideas and learn about some of the great things that are working there, and you share it with your staff, and you throw out those ideas as possibilities, and you build off those possibilities and they become reality. It's absolutely a great opportunity. So we're very excited about our school reform conference in Atlanta. Myself, Ms. Allen, Ms. Mitiga, Ms. Jakes, and Ms. Prendergast will be attending that from School 16. So thank you very much to the board and Mr. Carmel for supporting that. In district, we have our teacher scholarship PD units of study taking place at Carroll Hill, School 14 and School 18. I want to thank my colleagues, so our principals at those schools for supporting us and allowing our staff to come over and participate and join with your teachers and gain insight into some of the best practices in terms of the integration of the units of study instruction into our current program. Thank you once again, Dr. Watson, for also creating the framework and time to allow us to go. So our teachers have had the opportunity to go already to some of the PD sessions, and they're very excited. Great reviews in terms of the information they received and some of the information they're implementing in the classroom. In addition, our district monthly grade level meetings, as I stated earlier, faculty meetings are focused on discussions regarding data and teacher instruction. We do go through, for all of our staff, some of the grade level data sheets and share some of the great practices taking place. Also, I always refer back to our district-wide audit 3 master schedule. I think it's one of the best schedules I've ever seen in terms of the concentration of time for ELA and math. It's just focused, concentrated blocks of time where you can really work on targeted instruction for students. It provides a lot of opportunity to create groups and use staff in different ways in supporting students and moving forward and increasing achievement. Once again, it's a continuation of our math intervention block this year here at School 16. So 3 days a week, we have ELA intervention, and 2 days a week, we're still committed to the math intervention block, which is 40 minutes. During that time, our reading teachers do push in and they support as math intervention specialists, which has been very helpful in terms of our progress. And as with every year, we always review student progress and make shifts in our reading services and grouping based on assessment data. I mentioned this out, our full-time instructional coach in place to support us along with our data liaisons. Ms. Davis and Ms. Jakes are our 2 data liaisons here at School 16. So they work really closely with the grade level teams, K through 2 and 3 through 5, and reviewing their data sheets, looking at trends and sharing discussions in terms of possible approaches they can take in better supporting students. They're also very supportive and helpful to me in bringing that data to me and presenting to me what I can do differently as a leader to better support our teachers. I mentioned our Build EFS support team meetings, which take place during our faculty meetings and during extended grade level times, and once a month, like I mentioned before, ELA math DFS meetings are taking place for the whole day, where grade level teams rotate in with myself, Mr. Marco, Ms. McNeil, and Ms. Denardo. Also, our superintendent and principal day meetings. We started those last year with Mr. Carmella. He initiated those meetings, and discussions there are amazing. We share what we do at each of our schools. We build off that. And one thing I took from last year is that push-in reading model, pushing into the classroom, and read teachers push in for focus support. And I always take my notes at every meeting and say, okay, what are we going to present to our staff and talk about what we're going to do differently here to do things better. And that's a big part of improvement. And looking at what you're doing well, but also what you can do even better as you go along, and not get complacent in your success in terms of where you're at, but stay focused on the goal of where you want to go. So our library of resources here at School 16, I've presented this list, I think, every year, and this gets longer and longer. So one of the great practices here by our grade level teachers and our staff here at School 16 is we identify things that we know will work for our students. And we build off of that. And we share it across grade levels. So if it works for the 4th grade team, we share it and say, okay, grades 3 and 4, grades 3 and 5, let's try this. And then once we see the data, and it looks very consistent, the conversation becomes, let's do this. Let's not try it, let's actually put it in place. Because it's going to work for kids, it's going to work for us. So with that, you can see we have some of our test prep materials that we've always used for the past few years. But with that, we're adding on more and more each year. And as we move and transition programs, we still keep those things available to teachers to use in different situations. So this year, great idea that came from our reading teachers, along with some of our class, in addition to some of our classroom teachers, was to use some of those close reading strategy charts or ISA strategy charts. So as students work through responding to a reading passage, they have those helpful hints right there. So the approach or the strategy is to actually use those consistently outside of assessments, outside of tests, to build confidence. And as we get closer to our assessments, we'll pull back. So that's part of our approach. In addition to that, we brainstormed that idea at one of our DFS meetings with Nicole McNeil. She said, why don't we just do one for math? Do math strategy charts for students and give them the helpful hints with that. So that was a great idea she introduced and she shared that with us across the district for math strategy charts. So very much appreciate that. These are some of the resources that we've implemented and integrated into our program that are very much supporting our students. So teacher leadership. These are our leaders here. So when we talk about leadership here, it's well beyond the principal. It's our instructional coach, it's our math science curriculum leader, it's our ELA social studies curriculum leader, it's our data liaison, it's our technology liaison, it's our SDN committee, our PBS committee, our TI team, school leadership team, technology committee, and building safety committee. Our staff does a great job taking ownership. They don't shy away from responsibility, which is great. And I very much appreciate that. Every task that's been set before us, they step up to the plate every time. I think that's the big driving force on why we're so successful. The commitment to the work we do for this community. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Excellent job. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Excellent job. Thank you very much. Next up, we'll have Mr. Carmelo with the Troy High School Roof Capital Project presentation.
Filling in for Mr. Hotel. Well done. I would not have been able to do that. Mike is- okay.
Okay, great job, Dr. Ford, for the presentation. Great job, School 16 staff. The work that's been done here over the last several years has been nothing short of amazing. So. And great job singing tonight. That was a nice thought, Dr. Ford, when you did this thing. That was excellent. Well, great job. Mr. Holte, I'm going to be here tonight. I want to talk a little bit about our capital project. The vote is next Tuesday, and we've been to just about every PTA. Actually, we'll be back here tomorrow at 6 o'clock for the PTA meeting here, and that'll conclude our parent meetings. We've We've done all the elementary PTAs, and we've done the booster club at the secondary level. This is the public hearing for it. So I apologize to the board members who have seen this a couple of times, but it's important to make sure everybody's got all the information they need. So I start all the meetings that I do, budget-wise or these, with our mission statement: the Troy School District will provide a strong educational and social foundation to graduate all students college and career ready. That's what we're here to do every single day. School 16 is doing that so well. But when the facilities aren't up to par, and when the facilities get to a level where they're need improvement, then that can get in the way of us making this mission a reality. So we have two areas that need attention. I should say before that, we're probably here to the voters earlier than we anticipated. We were just here last year for the community schools wing, which is fantastic. For those who haven't seen it, they should go over to school too. That's up and running. And this probably would have been the next phase of the big capital project, which is probably another year or so out, not too much longer than that. The reason we're coming before that next phase is because we got some areas that really need attention. And there are those two marked there. The yellow is the roof over the gymnasium. If you're not familiar with the high school, that's the gym area. And the green is the over the classroom area, that U-shape over the classroom area. The white on the top of the screen there, that's the technology wing. That roof has just been patched up, and that also is going to need work, but that'll have to wait because there's only so much we can get done and only so much money that we had available. So both these roofs, the original installment date was 1980, so we're talking about 38-year-old roofs. So that's the issue right there. They're much past their useful lives. We did have a rebuild in 2006 and an additional 10-year warranty on it, but that warranty now is expired. And so what's been happening is, and there's some pictures later on in this presentation, there's leaks, there's damage that's done, and now we're paying each time. And we're putting Band-Aids on, short-term fixes. It's not the most cost-effective way, and it's really actually not working anymore. There's the gymnasium issue right there. That roof is not what we're voting on next Tuesday. This roof, we were able to get an emergency project status, which is not easy to do. Mr. Hotel and I should have introduced Jeff West from UW Marks. Jeff West from UW Marks, he was on the call with me, and our architects, Mike Fanning and Kirsten Larcher from Mosaic. This roof is actively leaking right now. If you went to the gymnasium today, there's about 20 of those buckets spread out around the gym, catching water on days where it's raining. I don't know if the snow is making that better or worse yet, but that roof is in bad shape. But because it was in such bad shape, we got on the phone with the state education department, and they've given us an emergency status for that, which means we don't need voter approval to spend that money. That's already up and running. The bids are already done. That work is going to start anytime, right?
The award tonight and start tomorrow.
Excellent. So that's underway. It's not up for the vote Tuesday, but I thought it was important to talk about because SED did do that. When they have an emergency project, what happens is we can use district money this year, and we get our refund, our building aid the following year. Typically on a capital project, we get our building aid over 15 years, but for an emergency project like this, that money comes immediately back, right back into the general fund next year. So that was good news that the State Education Department did that, and as Jeff just said, starts tomorrow. So what we're voting on for Tuesday is the classroom. We did ask SED to consider that as an emergency project. That one is not actively leaking like the gym one is. It's not in such bad shape. It's not as dire. But there are leaks there. There are issues there. And so they did tell us that although they couldn't give us an emergency status, and what that means is we do have to go out to voters to get approval. they will expedite the review. So after Tuesday's vote, hopefully it goes well, SED will that process from SED sometimes can take up to a year. They've promised us that will be expedited and we'll get our return very quickly so that we can start this work in the spring. So that's just kind of a review. This is a huge part. We've done a really, really great job in the district, Mr. Hoteling and the board, thinking ahead, planning ahead, and so the voters approved a capital reserve fund 2 Mays ago to allow us to put money aside, any money that we have at the end of the year that's a little bit left over. If our budget comes in a little bit lower than we thought and we got money, instead of going right into just the fund balance, we can put some in the capital reserve fund. So we've been doing that each year. That can go up to $4.5 million. And so all we're asking the voters to do is use that money that's already there as the local share. So this is going to be no tax impact for our taxpayers. We're always looking to balance, maintenance of our facilities and our educational program, the things that Dr. Ford just talked about, and being fiscally responsible to our taxpayers. And this project is no different. Again, we're going to hopefully get both these roofs fixed and no impact on taxpayers at all. The entire cost of the project is going to be $3.8 million. Our district aid ratio is 87.9%. We always estimate that conservatively, so when we go out for a project like this, we use 85% because there's often costs that even though your aid ratio is 87.9%, there will be things that happen in the project that aren't aidable, so you don't get that full 87.9. So we are very conservative and we'll do 85%. So the way that works is, if the project costs $3.8 million, then 15%, 85 from the 100, is the $577,000. That's how much the local taxpayers would have to pay to get that $3.8 million project done. For this one, those local taxpayer money will come out of our capital reserve fund. So again, no tax impact on the taxpayers. That money, that 15%, instead of coming from taxpayers directly, is coming from the capital reserve fund that the taxpayers have already approved for us. The remaining 3.2, the 85%, the 3.2 million, gets borrowed in the form of a bond, and that bond gets paid out over 15 years with our state aid. So the state pays 85%, local taxpayers typically pay 15%, but in this case, the capital reserve fund will cover that. So again, can't repeat it enough, no tax impact to get this work done. The timeline, we start talking to the board probably late summer, early fall. Jeff and Mosaic, our architects, came and gave a couple of updates on what was going on. The board then voted for the resolution to move forward with this October 17th. And the public vote, again, is next Tuesday. I already said SED has promised an expedited review, which is great for us, so we'll get the plans into them, and we'll get this thing ready to go so that we can begin work late spring and get it done by the start of next school year is the goal. Well, there have been several public meetings. We've had most of them before the Thanksgiving break. Again, we'll be here tomorrow to finish up that. There's a lot of information, as Tom said, in our public announcements, so a lot of information on our website as well. Certainly call if you have any questions, but it's the same polling places, same polling times next Tuesday. The one thing we're concerned of is we think this is a good, positive thing we're doing and a no-brainer, but it is the middle of winter, the weather hasn't been great, so please get out and vote. Please tell your neighbors to get out and vote. This is something that we need done, and we certainly don't want to use district funds to do that, which would take away our ability to do all of those getting our aid back things that I just spoke about. So that's the one thing we're concerned with, is that the turnout will be low. So please get out and vote next Tuesday, and please tell your friends to do so as well. We can, we will, end the story is the motto of the district, and that includes this capital project. Questions? Thank you very much.
That's all right. Now, Carmelo will be doing the policy review.
Yes. I was wondering why you're waiting for me. Thank you. So we have 4 policies that the policy committee met on before Thanksgiving and reviewed. All pretty straightforward, but I always like to give the board an opportunity to ask questions if they have them. The first is the new sexual harassment regulation. Remember, this got reviewed by the policy meeting committee just because, remember, at the time, advice of our attorneys, we pushed that through fairly quickly with the new regulations that came down from the state. They came down on a Thursday and told us we had to have the stuff in place by the following, Thursday. So we approved that without the normal review time, and so then they've since reviewed it. So if you have your packet, there's some changes in the later pages of that. It's really all just different tie-ins to all the other, the Office of Civil Rights and state human rights laws, and what the attorneys have done for us is tied the new sexual harassment policy into all of those organizations as well. The public complaint form is really the same as it's always been. But in practice, we've always added another layer, and so we've now added that as far as our policy goes. The channeling of complaints, we'd like to do it at the lowest level first, so it goes from teacher to building principal, and then what we've added is to assistant superintendent. Dr. Watson will follow the building principals, or Mr. Hoteling, depending on which department it's coming from, and then it will go to superintendent and Board of Education. One thing the committee is suggesting we take out is that the matters would have to be in writing, and we don't usually require that. If a parent is complaining about something, we don't typically make them put it in writing, so we took that out of the policy. Notice of public meetings, the only real changes there are dealing with the need to put it on our district website and some of our social media things, which we were already doing. It just wasn't in our policy yet. So that's just a change from NISBA that we've incorporated. And the last one was the display of the flag. So there was some changes recommended from NISBA. We do it already. We leave our flags up all the time. So there are some things that we have to make sure we're doing correctly. It's not illuminated in all the places, so we'll take care of that. But it was mainly about if you are going to put it up on the holidays that you have to put it up on, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and such. But we keep ours up all the time. So we're going to have to figure out how to make sure the illumination part is covered. But those are the changes. If you have any questions.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
There's some rumblings coming about the federal government changing the definition of sex in Title IX. Would that have any sort of effect on our sexual harassment policies or in our discrimination policies?
Kath, I'll give you that one.
Sure. Well, are you referring, Mike, potentially to, there's been a back and forth and a flipping and a flopping, that's a legal term, on how the federal government has been interpreting the word sex. Okay, and so it's due in large part to the changes in administration from the Obama administration to the Trump administration. Under the Obama administration, the enforcement agencies, like the Office of Civil Rights, were interpreting prohibitions against sex discrimination to be broad enough to include not only male, female, but gender identification, transgender. The Trump administration has announced that it is not going to view the sex discrimination protections as broadly as the Obama administration did.
And my question is that going to affect us?
Right, getting there. It's not going to affect us because in New York State, we have even broader protections under state law both under the human rights law and specifically with respect to schools, under the Dignity for All Students Act, in which it specifically not only mentions sex, but instead of leaving it to all of us to figure out, does sex include these other categories, the DASA law also specifically says gender identity, transgender status, etc. Both the Commissioner and the Attorney General of the state of New York, when the feds made the change, announced the change, came out fairly vigorously and said, we disagree. We offer more protections in New York State, and pointed not only to the human rights law, but to DASA. So we, in our school district, and in your school district, has a policy that is as broad as New York law is broad. No matter what the feds do, we offer those protections to transgender and people, and based upon gender identification and gender identity. Is that?
Yes, very good, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Okay. Superintendent recommendations, staff matters, unclassified, motion for consent to agenda items 1 through 13.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Staff matters classified, motion for consent to agenda items 1 through 6.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Superintendent recommendations programs, motion for consent to agenda items 1 through 4.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Superintendent recommendations business finance, motion for consent agenda items 1 through 3.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, on the bid award, I'm just curious, did this come in below the anticipated budget, or at, or above, for the general purchase contract?
The shoes, Jeff?
Yeah, it's considerably below.
Considerably below?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also on discussion, did we get a lot of bids in?
3 bids, all reputable bidders.
Great.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Future meetings, bless you. Our vote for the Troy High School roof will be on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, December 4th. Polling hours will be 7:30 to 8, and it will be at all our elementary schools.
And school zone.
And so, okay. December 5th, next Wednesday, our meeting will be at Troy Middle School at 6:30, December 19th at School 2 at 6 o'clock, January 2nd, 2019, 6:30 at Troy Middle School, and January 16th at 6 o'clock at School 18. Does anyone have anything like to add, discuss, comments?
I just want to give a reminder that the School 12 Alternative Learning Program is having their 3rd annual fundraiser down at, this year it's at the mall, underneath Revolution Mall downtown. And if you care to join Anna Apicella, Tom, and myself, this is Mr. Carmelo.
I paid my money this week.
All right. It's a good time, and everything goes to a great cause, and it is fun, a lot of good food. Nice prizes. Great prizes, so hopefully everybody can join us. You can pay at the door to get in, so, and all the money goes directly to the School 12 children for clothes and food and Christmas gifts. And the year, so.
Thank you. Mrs. Hart?
I attended the soccer banquet the other night, and it was well planned. I thank the soccer coaches for an excellent job, and it was well supported with the teachers, the coaches, and the parents. And I have another thing to say. Recently, due to the snowstorm, Mr. Carmelo made a decision not to close the school or not even have it delayed for 2 hours. I would like to thank him for that decision. I would like to thank the teachers and all employees. School started on time. And thank you, Mr. Carmelo.
I don't usually get thanks for that.
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?